This episode is sponsored by Scotcoin.
Scotland's first and only digital currency. It's peer-to-peer, always available, providing users with low to no fees. This is a crypto with a difference operating in the ethical space.
The organisation responsible for Scotcoin is a community interest company. This means they are dedicated to promoting positive change and a fairer Scotland. They incentivise and stimulate local trading initiatives, keep wealth locally, and grow the Scottish economy, encourage and support local businesses, and are an advocate for social enterprise and environmental causes.
Just to name a few. More about ethical crypto, head over to scotcoin.com.
Hi, and a warm welcome to Whisky Sisters, the podcast. I am Jennifer Rose.
And I am Inka Larissa.
Together we are
Whisky Sisters.
We would love you to join our weekly adventures. Come on, let us rock your whisky world. There'll be lots of news, gossip, bottle releases, and we will be raising our glasses through the tastiest of drams.
We'll be hosting expert guests, hitting the road and visiting some of the distilleries near you. And let's not forget dropping in some cheeky whiskey facts. Join our whiskey journey.
This week, we are taking you to Taiwan. We are joined with Sam from Cask 88, who has some experience in Taiwanese whisky from his time living in the country.
And Dram on Fire will feature Kavalan Select No. 2 and Yushan Signature Bourbon Cask single malt. How about our new sponsors?
I know, check us out, our very first sponsors. Very exciting, Inka.
Yeah, it's great to team up with Scotcoin.
And for them to believe in the podcast.
Exactly. Before we go any further in this episode, it is time to stick our noses into the latest whiskey news.
Stick your nose in it.
There's been some sad news this week as spirits writer, author and consultant Dominic Roscoe has passed away. Roscoe's work in the drinks industry included being editor of the Spirits business between 2011 and 2012 and editor of Whisky magazine. From April 2016 to June 2018, he worked as a spirits writer, magazine editor and consultant at Craig Ellicky Hotel in Speyside. He then took the role of editor-in-chief at Whisky Quarterly from June 2018 to April 2020 before becoming managing director of Worldwide Whisky Company. His accomplishments also included penning a number of spirits books such as Whisky America and the World's Best Whiskies.
Yeah, very sad news. And he was only 61 years old as well.
Oh, that's super young, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of tributes going around on social media.
Yeah, rightly so.
Other news I spied on Instagram. Robert Richardson, who completed the charity whiskey cycling tour, and we've mentioned him on the podcast a couple of times. So he's now published all the final numbers. And I thought it was quite interesting that he basically traveled 2,263 miles, so 3,650 kilometers, and spent 187 hours on the saddle. He visited 145 distilleries, pretty impressive, and sourced 84 bottles of unique whiskies for the charity auction. And he managed to raise just under £10,000 for the charities.
Well done, Robert. That's an amazing achievement.
Good work.
Worldwide Whiskies with the Whisky Sisters.
The first ever Kavalan whisky was released in December 2008, and the distillery began operating in 2005 in Yilan country in Taiwan. Kavalan is actually the old name of the county. The founder, Tin Sai Lee, was prevented from moving into whisky while the Taiwanese state operated a monopoly system for alcohol production. But once the island joined the World Trade Organization in 2002, he wasted no time in laying the foundations to launch Taiwan's first whisky. Lee and his son gathered a team of engineers and food technologists to research how whisky is made around the world. According to Ian Chang, Kavalan's master blender, Lee Sr. was heavily inspired by the traditional Scotch style and traditional producing methods. Single malt production made sense for Kavalan.
They chose County Yilan because of its water supply and subtropical climate, which is ideal for whiskey maturation. The distillery, which had capacity of 2.5 million litres of pure alcohol a year with 4 copper pot stills, was built in just 9 months. Crazy fast.
Mm-hmm.
It was the late whiskey consultant Dr. Dr. Jim Swan, who helped the team to come up with the house whiskey. He actually worked with Kavalan for over 10 years, helping the distillery establish its fruity, oily, and complex style. And Dr. Swan influenced Kavalan in their wood policy. For example, he taught the team why American oak should be the brand's preferred cask type, because European oak would result in bitter and harsh whiskey due to the local climate.
Oh,
I know, so many things to consider, isn't it, when you're like producing
exactly.
whiskey?
Definitely. I was thinking a bit about that on preparation for this episode. I don't know too much about the country of Taiwan and what it's like, and I've just been really curious to learn more. And Dr. Jim Swan, he's left some legacy, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Kavalan was also the first distillery to use Swan's now famous STR cask treatment, which stands for shaved, toasted and recharred. The method was developed to combat the shortage of refill casks in the global whisky industry between 2009 and 2013. Swan came up with the idea of buying ex-wine casks, removing their organic acids by shaving, toasting and recharring the wood. This approach to maturation means Kavalan's whiskies are often seen as having a complexity that belies their tender age. The distillery started accumulating international trophies from 2010, when its whiskey could have been no more than 4 years old. Kavalan does not list age statements on its whiskies, but Chang says the distillery plans to expand its line to include age-stated expressions in the future.
Sitting at 3,000 meters above sea level, the Nantou Distillery also benefits from an outstanding subtropical climate that is perfect for aging these whiskies. And the distillery was founded by Taiwan Tobacco and Liquor Corporation, a Taiwan state-owned manufacturer of tobacco and alcohol, as it says on the name, in 1978. But funnily enough, it wasn't until 2008 that it started producing its first whiskey. They definitely waited for a while, didn't they?
Yeah.
And before 2010, the mash, wort, and wash were made in a nearby brewery, which Nantou stopped using when it installed its own German mash tun and wash bags in the distillery. And Nantou currently has 4 stills manufactured in Speyside. I think a lot of these foreign distilleries are using Scottish stills. And
Yeah.
Nantou Distillery make 2 whiskies called Omar and Yushan.
Have you ever been to Taiwan?
No, I have not.
No, me either. I've not been to that neck of the woods at all.
No, but I've met actually a few people in the whiskey industry who's been living there or live there now. Seems to be a popular place to go.
Yeah, let's ask Sam a little bit about it.
So have you actually tried any Taiwanese whiskey before this episode?
No, I would say I've been curious, but kind of didn't know where to start. So I've focused on, Scotch whiskey. I don't know if I felt a bit intimidated to try Taiwanese, Japanese. I'm not sure. I was wondering about that. What about you? What's your experience been before this episode?
Like 0.
Yeah,
like
same.
you. I've always been intrigued by Kavalan, and they obviously, because all the awards and just a lot of good feedback, but they're not the cheapest whiskies out there, so it's just not been my first choice.
Yeah.
And I guess when you get into whiskey, it's easier to get into whiskey that's near you, so that's why maybe we haven't tried so many bourbons. And
Yes,
it's easier to go with the Scotch because it's just widely available.
Branching out now, being adventurous.
Yes, worldwide whiskies. Okay, let's bring in Sam.
Sam Laing.
We like that.
Yes, that's what the sound of rice whiskey popping is like. Hi, Sam. Lovely to have you back. Could you tell us a little bit about your time in Taiwan, when it was and why you were there?
So yeah, it's a few years ago now. It's just when I finished uni, I kind of got this feeling that there's a really big world out there. I kind of want to see a bit more of it. And it also kind of felt that Chinese was like a pretty good language to learn. It might be something useful in my future. And so these two ideas kind of came together. Mm-hmm. And without too many clear ideas in my head, I went off to Taiwan, got a sort of an English teaching certificate under my belt. And yeah, I was out there teaching English and trying to learn some Chinese as well.
Amazing.
Wow.
Adventurous spirit or what?
Yeah. So how is your Chinese then?
Hi ho. Oh, how jiu mei sure. It's a tough language to learn and an even tougher language to remember, but I still remember a few bits here and there.
Brilliant.
Did you drink a lot of whiskey when you were there? Did you like whiskey at the time already, or did you discover whiskey a bit later on?
It was later on. When I was in Taiwan, actually, I had no interest in whiskey at all. Bit of a waste knowing now what I know.
Yeah.
But I think I was still reeling from my first experience of Lefroy at age 19, and I just kind of thought that whiskey was not for me. So I didn't get into it then. But Taiwan has a great tradition of tea, which I was drinking more often when I was out there.
I take you didn't visit any of the distilleries then?
Not at that time, no. I was there from like 2009, which I guess is about the time the Nantou Distillery was being founded, and Kavalan was already there, but nobody knew about it yet. And yeah, so and I was there until about 2013. It was when I came to Scotland that I got interested in whiskey, but I was still super nostalgic for Taiwan. So when I saw that Taiwan was starting to win whiskey awards, I was like, okay, I need to try this.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there's Kavalan, and then there's this other distillery, and now there's this other distillery. Like Taiwan is really sort of coming up in the world of whiskey, and I was watching it from a distance, but I did go back, and I have been to Kavalan Distillery since.
Oh, nice. How was it?
It's huge. It's so big. They're really professional there about what they do, but it's in a really nice corner of Taiwan. It's kind of over the mountains on the east coast, and it's kind of nestled in among these really sort of traditional China kind of mountains, semi-tall, green, quite lush and subtropical. So it's not at all what you imagine when you visit a Scotch distillery. It really sort of fits into its landscape there.
It sounds beautiful. So you must be quite familiar, I'm guessing, Sam, with all their ranges.
I've done what I could. Kavalan, they have so many whiskies out there, single cask strengths, more moderate sipping whiskies, loads of different cask finishes. So you'd need a lot of time and money to try everything from Kavalan. But what I have tried has been amazing.
Yeah. So do you have any favorites because they obviously have the Concept Master and the Select that's a bit cheaper, and then the Solist range, which is very popular.
Yeah. The Solist range is really it's really punchy, like really powerful flavors, and that sort of the maturation in Taiwan is helped by the fact that the climate's a bit hotter, so you can get some amazing results in a shorter time. For me, I actually quite like Kavalan when it's taking it easy, when it's a bourbon cask finish, even when they're doing they're lightly peated ones. I love the sherry finished ones, but it's the bourbon cask Kavalans. They really sort of lean into that kind of tropical, slightly cane sugar flavor, and I really like that about them.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that maturation, because I was just wondering that how do you think the Taiwanese maturation differs from one in Scotland when it comes to like casks, aging times, and obviously the cost is quite huge, probably because 12 to 15% is the Angel share yearly compared to the Scotland's 2%.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly their whiskey evaporates there, because having been to the distillery, it's warm. It's really, really warm, and it's really humid as well. So that's like the perfect storm for alcohol to evaporate quickly. So I guess they can't hold on to their whiskey for as long as a Scottish distillery would. But the upshot is the flavors that they're looking for, they can develop much more quickly. Yeah. And I think they can mature for 2 years, but they still don't. They do mature for at least 3 and usually quite a bit more. But yeah, they're losing a lot to the Angels down there.
I wonder what the oldest would be, because I don't know if they always tell you the age either. So, and also with the casks, it's funny, it's hard to find the information online. We will sample the Select No. 2, and I couldn't find any information whatsoever on the casks.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is, especially because they must have that information because they are importing their casks, from America, from Europe. So they must be very specifically ordering what it is that they want. Or maybe that information is all there, but if you don't read traditional Chinese, then maybe the websites are locked to us.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the cost? Because some of them are very expensive. Solus bottles are easily over £300. Hence, we're only reviewing the Select No. 2, even if we've heard great things about the Solus range.
I mean, I think it's because Solist is it's their world-beating range. It's the one that, beat Scottish whiskies in some blind tastings. It's got a lot of profile, that whiskey, and it's a big distillery, but there's only so much they can make. So supply and demand, I guess. There's a lot of demand for Kavalan, so I guess their prices can creep up. But it's not the only distillery in Taiwan. A bit further south, kind of in the center of the island, you've got Nantou Distillery. I think you guys said you were trying one of their Yushan whiskies.
Yeah, we did mention the distillery earlier in the show, so our listeners know a little bit about it, but please do share your opinions.
So yeah, that one is, I think you can pick up their bottles for maybe less than Kavalan. Yeah, I think you can, their whiskies are quite hard to find, but I think they're relatively reasonably priced because they don't yet have the exposure of Kavalan, and they also are quite experimental with their casks.
They do peated as well.
They do peated. I've not had a chance to try that.
No.
I have had their lychee wine cask and their plum wine cask.
Oh, what?
Those are great. They're so good. They're really fun, actually. They've got some flavors that you might not have encountered in whiskey before. Pretty sweet, quite tropical. And when you see a big bunch of lychees as the picture on the bottle, that's a strong incentive to get them as a tasting note.
But those bottles are actually quite widely available in Italy, at least. I've seen them online, so I might have to order some. I'm quite intrigued by the peat, especially, so maybe in the future.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued as well for their peated one, because I think they get all their materials from Scotland. I don't think you can grow barley very well on Taiwan, and their stills are from Rothers. So there's a lot of kind of Scottish DNA in Taiwanese whiskey.
And talking of flavours that people might not be familiar with in whiskey, Sam, you've opened a very special bottle. Can you tell us a bit about what you're sipping right now?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I know, which is not much, because I think it's just a one-man band. Just someone set up a set of stills. I don't think it's in his home, but I went on Google Street View to look at the distillery, and it just looks like a residential block. It's amazing.
May as well be.
Yeah, it's the Holy Distillery, and I've got the Amazing Grace, which is a Taiwanese grain whiskey. It's made out of Taiwanese rice. I've never had a rice whiskey before. I thought this was a nice time to have my first ever taste of rice whiskey, since I'm talking about Taiwanese whiskey today.
The color is really nice, very dark.
Yeah, very dark caramelly color, isn't it?
It's really perfumed. Is that what rice grains taste like? Or is it the fact that they put it through a plum wine bourbon barrel as well? It's definitely sweet, a little spicy. There's something different going on there that I've not encountered in Scotch before, and I don't have the words for it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so you probably need a bit more time with it.
It does take time though, doesn't it? It takes time even for the nose to become clearer and all the different flavours that can come through on future sips.
It's a bit like a preserved plum. That's something they're really big on in Taiwan, is these plums that are kind of preserved in salt and slightly pickled, and with a few other sort of, I don't know, herbs for flavoring. And they're really earthy and kind of salty, and I don't like them very much. But if you cut that salt out of them and have just the kind of almost slightly fermented, slightly pickled plumminess, I think I'm getting that a little bit.
So very unique flavors for Taiwan.
And if people are interested in getting that, is it a hard one to track down? Did you buy that when you were out there, or can you get that online?
I think I messaged the owner of the distillery on Instagram and and just sort of worked it out that way.
Nice.
Yeah, it really, I think it is a very sort of small operation.
I got to hustle for your whiskey.
Yeah, I think he makes a gin as well, so it's worth looking up. Holy Distillery. This is a real niche one for the whiskey nerds, I think.
Fantastic.
And with the Nantou Distillery, you mentioned Omar before. In my understanding, they still do both Omar and Yushan.
I think what they've done is, I think they've diversified. I think Omar is now kind of their single cask strength, non-chill filtered whiskey to talk about, sort of kind of prestige whiskey. And then Yushan is their more approachable, slightly lower strength, more straightforward ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, identifiable to novice and mid-level whiskey drinkers. So I think, they're widening their audience with bringing in Yushan, is my understanding.
Yeah, and I think they got some blended whiskies as well.
Yeah, haven't encountered those myself. I do have a fun fact about them that I discovered in my reading. There's like a legislation in Taiwan that you can't store anything above 60% alcohol without some really specialized firefighting equipment. They see it as a really big hazard. So Nantou Distillery, they dilute everything to 59 just so they can get it in the cask without buying any extra firefighting equipment for their warehouse.
That's a good fact. Although they probably still should have some kind of equipment around.
That's it.
I think they've got something, but maybe it's not at the top of the line.
We're all for a dram on fire, but not of the hazardous kind.
What kind of other drinking habits there are in Taiwan, and how do they drink their whiskey? Because, you know, like in Japan, they love their highball. Do they do the same in Taiwan, or?
I think so, but Taiwan is kind of unusual in that it's really a single malt country. I think it's the only country in the world where people are more likely to drink a malt than they are to drink a blend. I even read somewhere that 70% of the whiskey drunk in Taiwan is single malt, and that's really unusual. I think they really like to go for the high level prestige bottles.
Yes.
Brand is important, label is important. There are special releases that Scottish distilleries do just for the Taiwanese market of some of their malts. So I think they've got a very discerning drinking crowd who know what they like, and they like the best. Yeah, I definitely want to go back to Taiwan and go down to Nantou, see that distillery, and then also see if I can find where holy whiskey is made. Make a pilgrimage to that most sacred distillery.
Brilliant to hear your lived experiences of it, Sam. And, you know, it's lovely to hear that you went back and did distillery visits once your love of whiskey grew. It's
an island that's really easy to fall in love with, and there's so much stuff to see there. And if you're a bit of a foodie, it's paradise on earth. It's a great place to go.
Beautiful flavours. I think I need to, you know, become a bit more adventurous in what I try so I can describe the whiskies better.
Yeah, it's a good way to train yourself in whiskey, and a good excuse just to go to some nice places to eat. Just say, I'm just, I'm doing research for the podcast.
Well, we actually got invited to a restaurant, well, obviously at the Clentaret, but then also to another Michelin-star restaurant. And sample some of their whiskies as well in the restaurant, so that's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Seems like starting a whiskey podcast is quite a nice way to get invited to some good places.
We've not been invited to Taiwan, not just yet anyway.
You've got some Taiwanese listeners. I hope they're listening because, I'd love to hear the Whisky Sisters episode where you guys go to the various distilleries around Taiwan. So someone make that happen.
Let's put it in the universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We love that intention, Sam Laing. Thank you so much. It's lovely to see you as always.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for asking me back. It's been lovely, and thank you for giving me an excuse to try my holy whiskey.
Dram on fire.
Let's start with Yushan Signature Bourbon Cask, which is bottled at 46% ABV. Yushan is named after the highest mountain in Taiwan at 3,952 beautiful meters.
Okay, so I would say the color was kind of bright yellow. It's very yellow.
Yeah, I've got autumn sunshine. It was quite bright.
Yeah, it was sunshiny for sure.
Yeah.
So the nose I thought was quite sweet vanilla. It really made me think of grain whiskies, some of the grain whiskies that I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
There's that kind of sweetness with a little bit of citrus. And then when I left in the glass for a bit longer, I was getting like panna cotta and even some hints of coffee, like freshly brewed coffee, freshly, like it's in a pot.
Oh, okay. That's nice. I think I've got kind of similar. I struggled a little bit. I needed to go back and nose it again once the air had been in it a bit more. I got that sweetness, soft, chewy caramels, some orange peel was my citrus note, and a little bit of kind of that dry, grassy field that I sometimes talk about, that kind of slightly outdoor aroma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm just still going back to it, I'm getting, I think because you said caramel, kind of those Werther's originals. Or how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce them.
No, that's exactly it. Those kind of like soft, slightly chewy, kind of
no, but those are the hard
butterscotchy
ones. Yeah, but they're like hard-boiled ones.
Oh, right. You must get soft ones as well. My mum eats them.
It's actually you do. Yeah. But yeah, it's not too bad. Like you, I had to come back to it.
Okay.
At first, I was like, okay, yeah, it's a lot of vanilla, but it felt a bit alcoholic. Like I was getting a bit of the fumes, maybe at 46, but then with air, it definitely balanced out, and I'm not getting that anymore at all. How about the palate?
I found it quite woody at first. Then I was getting like baking spices, ginger baking spice, maybe some cinnamon.
Oh my God, I wrote baking spices, cinnamon, nutmeg.
Oh, I love when we're in a wee bit of taste rapport.
Yeah.
I've never had this note before, and it was quite faint, but I was kind of going back and forward sipping, taking a bit of time, and I almost got a kind of faint menthol kind of like not like a minty sweetie, but like kind of menthol aromas. Like if somebody's eating like a menthol chewing gum, that kind of taste on the palate.
That's funny as well, because I was thinking of, like menthol cigarettes. Because I used to, when I was a smoker back in the day, don't smoke anymore, but I would love a menthol cigarette. Like, I was always calling it a mountain air. So that kind of leaves slightly eucalyptus aftertaste. Definitely get that. Some sort of like freshness.
That's
in a way.
really good shout, that eucalyptus, Inka. Oh, I did used to love a wee cheeky menthol cigarette myself now and again.
I was also getting some citrus, but yeah, I pretty much wrote the same kind of stuff, like oaky spice, baking spices, that eucalyptus stuff, the citrus, and still some vanilla lingering at the end in the finish.
Yeah, I was sipping away. At first, I wasn't sure how much I was enjoying it, but as I was sipping away, it was going down quite easily. I found the finish like a medium finish, maybe slightly drying.
Yes, yeah. I would have to agree. And I think, again, the same as you, I wasn't sure if I was enjoying it, but then it's like, oh, actually, it's not too bad. Nice kind of entry-level bourbon, single malt. Not bad, but maybe wouldn't be rushing back to it either.
Yeah, but not bad at all.
Next up is the Kavalan Select No. 2 single malt whiskey, which is bottled at 40% ABV. And I have no idea on the casks. Maybe some guesses, but I looked everywhere and I couldn't find any details whatsoever.
Oh, how would you describe the colour of this one?
Sunny barley field.
Oh, romantic, Inka.
Yeah.
I've got runny honey. As I look at it now, maybe a tint of peach as well.
Oh, yeah.
That being said, I'm currently sat with loads of candles and like little lamps. I'm not sure how accurate that is.
I know, actually, I'm sitting in a dark room. With Italian houses, there's hardly any lamps anywhere.
Oh.
It's really strange. There's no overhead lamps, so I'm always sitting in the dark.
Yeah, some mood lighting.
So how about the nose in this one then?
Initially, I found it quite sweet. Fresh fruit, pear, peaches, fresh cut grass. Then I was getting a kind of sugared almonds. As I'm going back into the glass just now, I don't know if I'm getting any of that. It seems to have changed with the air.
Oh my God, this is crazy. Okay, so I wrote maraschino cherries and then Cantucci biscuit soaked in Vinsanto. And Cantucci biscuit is an almond biscotti.
Oh, cool.
So it's like kind of similar to yours. But when it's soaked into the kind of sweet wine, crunchy almond, the biscuit soaked in the wine. And then after a while, I was even getting like, have you ever made pancakes from banana? Like really old dried bananas?
Yes.
Yeah, so that kind of banana pancakes, hint of maple syrup and cinnamon in there.
That's a really good shout. I think your tasting notes there could, win an award for most enticing tasting notes. Who wouldn't want to dive into that description?
Okay, the palate.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, Inka, I didn't enjoy it at first. Sorry, Kavalan. At first, I was like, oh, I've actually written on the page, oh, I didn't like it. I found it really fruity and spicy, licoricey and chili flakes. However,
what?
I went back to it and thought, well, that's totally gone now. It was weird. It was like the first sip I didn't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went back to it, I thought that tastes like a different whiskey. So I've not had that experience before. I found it quite an unusual experience.
Was it the first time you tried whiskey today, or any alcohol, or did you eat something beforehand, or? Yeah,
it was my first sip of the day.
Yeah, I think it takes a while for your palate to get used to it, to be fair.
I think my palate got a fright initially, but it soon adjusted and then thought, oh, hello, my old friend. I was imagining kind of like, like summer, quite light and floral notes, or like on the palate. I was thinking maybe rose and like summer fruit pie, maybe with a zesty creme fraiche on the side. And I was sipping away like crazy and then was like finishing the sample. So it definitely changed quickly.
Very different this time. I was getting vanilla custard, cookie dough, dried blueberries.
Nice.
Definitely spicier with the air, but like again, more like baking spices, cinnamon, like a cinnamon bun going with the cookie dough and stuff, but like fresh cinnamon bun when it's still warm.
Oh, lovely. I did have on the finish a medium finish and a creaminess and like a pastry, so I can totally get on board with your cinnamon buns.
Yeah, I think the finish was longer on the previous one than with this one, but maybe The nose was better. I don't know. I can't really choose which one I preferred because they're similar but still different. Like the nose was quite sweet.
I think if I'm pushed, I'm picking Kavalan, but it was quite close for me.
I think I would agree. It was actually surprisingly nice. Or like, I don't know why I say surprisingly because Kavalan is doing so well. But it was more like I wasn't super excited about either of them, to be fair.
I wonder if that... So the one we've tried at 40% ABV, that's quite an award winner. Is that right?
I don't know if that is because it's normally the Solist, the more expensive ones that they do. I have to say for 40% ABV, this was actually much more enjoyable than some of the Scotch whiskies that I've tried at 40%.
I would totally concur with that. If I was guessing, I would think that was 46% ABV if I was hazarding a guess.
Exactly. So maybe that is the influence of the temperatures and, just the location. The aging is faster, so you really get much more influence from the wood much quicker.
Well, I've just finished my glass and I've got to say I sort of enjoyed it. The more I had, the more I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it definitely got me intrigued. I would be interested definitely in trying more from Kavalan.
That expensive bottle, we need to get our paws on some of that.
I know. God, I don't know. It's quite a big risk, isn't it, to order something that costs £300?
We'll step away from that price tag.
Actually, for that, we could probably just fly to Taiwan and go to a bar.
Yeah.
Whisky Sisters Whisky Fact.
So let's talk about legs.
La la.
Yeah. When you swirl a whiskey, some of the liquid sticks to the side of the glass and then begins to form trails as it flows back into the bowl. These are called legs, or also known as tiers or cathedral windows. But what do the legs tell you?
The legs don't lie. The legs are an indication. They're an indication of strength. But the speed at which the legs flow down the side of the glass and their thickness will also give you an indication of the character and strength of the whisky. Higher levels of oak, extractives and other oils will contribute to the speed and weight of the legs. Put simply, the more rapidly the legs move, the lighter the whisky will be in the mouth. The thicker and slower they are, the heavier it will feel. The inside of the glass, therefore, can be said to replicate in some way the inside of the mouth. Do you know, I was speaking to somebody recently and she was saying she doesn't call it legs anymore because one of the whisky writers, I can't remember his name, was saying slightly saucy things about legs and making a lot of innuendo about the legs of the whisky. So she was telling me, she's like, I can't even say it anymore because it gives me the bad heebie-jeebies.
Really? Do you remember when we were in Tobermory?
Mm-hmm.
Diana was saying, look at the pearl necklace.
Oh, yeah. So she was. There's a joke there as well, but I quite like legs and I quite like pearl necklace as well.
I know, but it did look like pearl necklace. She was right. But
she
definitely
was right. I'd forgotten.
If you don't want to say legs, maybe you don't want to say pearls either.
Oh, say what you want, people. This episode was sponsored by Scotcoin, Scotland's first and only digital currency.
To see how you can get involved, head over to their website, scotcoin.com, or go to their Instagram at scotcoin_official.
You've been listening to the Whisky Sisters podcast.
So thanks for tuning in. And if you have enjoyed our podcast, please remember to leave a review on your favorite podcast channel. It means a lot to us.
Definitely. And thank you so much to those that are downloading the podcast. That helps us track how many people are listening and where you are. So thank you so much to you downloaders. Next week, we are featuring Kavalan Distillery. So get your Kavalan Dram ready and join us next Wednesday. You know you wanna.
It's a great distillery. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram at whiskysisters.podcast, Twitter at Whisky Sisters, and Facebook at Whisky Sisters Podcast.
Happy Thanksgiving to our American listeners when it comes. May your glass be full and your dram on fire.